Is allowing us to make advances in fields that are...
The next one is AI.
People understand that they use AI today, right?
Actually said, here are some design guidelines.
The artificial intelligence.
But my prediction is that when AI happens, it's going...
I feel like the Luddite in the room. Everybody's...
AI is just amazing.
I'm really quite close to...
Personally scared, just to get that out.
Artificial intelligence, this...
The AI conversation seems like it's kind of hard to ignore it in 2019. And I've had conversations with other people who are more negative about it, more pessimistic about just AI and the possible downside. I'm curious if you're more optimistic about the upside of AI or uses for it or ways to possibly make an impact in what you're trying to do.
Well, AI is allowing us to make advances in fields that are really important, like understanding the biology of the human body. It's super complicated. And so if you look at all the data you gather, because the sensors are getting better, trying to understand, okay, how do we help people with obesity? How do we take cancer? Where is the point you want to interfere? Even the one that's really difficult is the brain is so complicated that we don't have drugs for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And so if we want to, not just people live longer, but them to live really quality years and not have the medical costs be expanding, that's an area AI, people feel like, yeah, I'm not against that.
Let's talk about what you're doing in AI, because you do have the most AI researchers in the world, like by far. And you bought many companies and like DeepMinds and other things.
First of all, look, it's important to help people understand that they use AI today, right? One of the AI is just, making computers more intelligent and be able to do, a wide variety of tasks. And we take it for granted whenever something happens and we actually adopt it. So for example, today Google can translate across many, many languages and people use it billions of times a day. That's because of AI. Or if you use a product like Google Photos, if you go to Google and search for images of sunset, or if you go to Google Photos and search for people hugging, we can actually pull together people, and show photos of people hugging. This is all because of AI. So, it's first of all important to understand, there are early stages of AI here and we use it today. We don't take just a very optimistic view of AI. AI is one of the most important things humanity is working on. It's more profound than, electricity or fire. And
fire?
Well,
fire's pretty good. Go ahead.
Well, it kills people too,
yes,
right? We've learned to harness fire for the benefits of humanity, but we had to overcome its, downsides too. So my point is, AI is really important, but we have to be concerned about it. I think it's good. That's how humanity solves things. So we worry about climate change. That's why over the past many, many years, we have gotten increasingly concerned. We all get together. There are things like Paris Agreement, and we are working towards solving climate change. We haven't fully figured out the answers, but we are really worried about it. That's how we make progress. So I think it's fair to be worried about AI. So I wouldn't say we are just being optimistic about it, but we want to be thoughtful about it. AI holds the potential for some of the biggest advances we are going to see. Whenever I see the news of a young person dying of cancer, you realize AI is going to play a role in solving that in the future. So I think we owe it to make progress too. So I think it's a balance.
What are you most excited about over the next 20 years? What do you think will be the major transformations? How will Facebook transform? How do you think the rest of the world will transform?
The next one is AI. I think that's just going to unlock so much potential in so many different domains. And we use it at Facebook for a lot of different things, for showing people content that they're going to find more meaningful, for making sure that you connect with the people you actually care about on the service. But in a lot of ways, the work that we're doing on AI to push the fundamental, state-of-the-art forward is exactly the same stuff that's going into systems that diagnose diseases better, right? Or find better drugs to treat people, or that other companies are using when they build self-driving cars. And these are things that are going to save lives, right? I mean, if you can, I heard this story recently that at this conference where someone has built a machine learning application where you can take a picture of a lesion on someone's skin, and it can detect instantly whether it's skin cancer with the accuracy of the best dermatologists and doctors in the world. So, I mean, who doesn't want that, right? I mean, now, like, you're going to be able to put the power in your doctor's hand to become the best doctor in the world at that thing. Everyone will be the best doctor in the world. And that's a really fundamental thing, right? That, I get a little bit frustrated, I think, when people, fearmonger about AI and how it could end up hurting people, because I think in many real ways around diseases, around driving more safely, I mean, this is going to save people's lives and push people forward. So that's a really big deal, I think, for the next 10 years.
How do you do that, Susan? Think about, people are scared. I mean, are you scared, for example?
Well, I'm not personally scared, just to get that out there. And I think it's
but
because...
you're a robot, but go ahead.
I am definitely not a robot. You know that. Karen and I have been friends known each other for a long time. And I think it's because I have a better understanding of what AI is. And maybe back to the question that we had here, most people just hear about AI, they see it in the movies, but not just... as you see in Hollywood, some of the dramatic interpretations of it, but also the positive, right? It being used for things like medical. We get a lot of requests from different medical organizations. How can we use this for better early detection? Cities, urban planning, all kinds of areas.
Bill, you've spent some time working on artificial intelligence and taking a look at some of these things. What do you think is interesting in this arena? Where do you think we run into potential problems? Because you've also said that you think it could be a real issue for humanity if things get out of control.
Well, in the even 10 to 20 year time frame, artificial intelligence is going to be extremely helpful. And the risk that it gets super smart, that's way out in the future and probably worth talking about. But now what we're seeing is that for the first time, computers can see as well as humans. That's pretty incredible. If you combine that with the ability to have arm-like manipulation, then they can make us far more productive, but then the job market has to adjust to that. Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft are all moving ahead at a great speed in improving this artificial intelligence software. So it's very exciting, and the speed is faster than it was 5 years ago. Where would be the one area that you think stands to have the most promise for this? I mean, are you thinking the productivity in the labor force like you thought? Are you thinking driverless cars? Are you thinking advances in health and technology, or in health and science? Where would you think the real promise lies? Well, one area is what we call agents, where if you're seeking knowledge, you can talk in natural language to an expert agent, and it will do as well as a human would giving you information. A specific example of that is have the software help you figure out what's important. Today we're kind of slaves to our computer, where we have to decide to go to email or Twitter or text, and we're the one weighing which might be more important. Software is going to solve that, where it'll look at all the new information and present to you, knowing about your interests, what would be most valuable. So making us more efficient, what I call the alter ego software, will be a huge help.
Finally, let's talk to our young people. The artificial intelligence is coming. And robots is going to replace a lot of jobs. But I'm a belief that 30 years later, this new technology is going to create more jobs than today.
I think there's a lot to be said for basic amounts of computation. There's a lot of people who agree with me on this, a lot of people who don't. But my prediction is that when AI happens, it's going to be a lot of computation and not so much clever blackboard, whiteboard kind of stuff, clever algorithms, but just a lot of computation. And that my theory is that if you look at your programming, your DNA is about 600 megabytes compressed. So it's smaller than any modern operating system, smaller than Linux or Windows or anything like that, your whole operating system. That includes booting up your brain, right, by definition. And so your program algorithms probably aren't that complicated. It's probably more about the overall computation, but that's my guess. We have some people at Google who are really trying to build artificial intelligence. and to do it in a large scale and so on. And in fact, to make search better, we really need to make, to do a perfect job of search, you could ask any query and it would give you the perfect answer, and that would be artificial intelligence, right? Based on everything being on the web, which is pretty close approximation. So I think we're lucky enough to be working incrementally closer to that. But again, very, very few people are working on this, and I don't think it's that far off as people think.
But Sergey, would you see more the positive side? Of course, as an entrepreneur, you have to see the positive side, but do you see also possible risks in all those fancy, if I may use this word, new means which we will have at our disposal?
I think it definitely requires some thought. And incredibly, and I'm here at Davos, and I'm just shocked at how I feel like the Luddite in the room. Everybody's talking about, well, how do we cope with this increased automation here and the jobs displaced and so forth? And, I feel like the one like, actually that's pretty hard to do with a computer, and I kind of know what we're trying to accomplish to make that technology work. And I think a lot of folks here are, I think, correctly forward-thinking, taking some of those innovations for granted and then saying, well, what does that mean for society and so forth? I think that's the right thing to do. I think thinking through sort of AI as the continuing of the automation that we've seen in the past 200 years and how that evolves society and economy and social order, that's the smart thing to do. I don't think it's sort of impossible somehow, but it deserves a lot of thought.
Let me start with the big question we've been talking about at the Ideas Festival so far, is that all of that will lead to an artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence will take our jobs and we'll have some frightening new future. Do you believe in that scenario?
First of all, it's great to be at the Ideas Festival because you got straight to the point. Quite honestly, it's such a privilege to have a chance to sort of breathe the air, soak the atmosphere where you're celebrating ideas, and to know that you're in safe ground. That means any bad idea of mine will also be at least celebrated for a few minutes. And it's just a privilege to be part of this. I wrote a piece just yesterday on AI because the way I came at it, Walter, was I've been thinking a lot about, as creators of machine intelligence and artificial intelligence, what are the design principles? What's this design sensibility that we need to have as we create these applications or platforms? Aside from Asimov, no one has actually said, here are some design guidelines for a software engineer who's creating AI. And I felt like the real thing today that we need is those guidelines for the creators. And when I thought about that, the first thing I said, wow, we have a choice to make, for example. So as creators, we can decide how we design them. So I fall in the camp of how do we create AI to augment the human capability, enhance the human experience. So I fall into that camp. So then after that, I sort of said, let's go take it one click down and say, what are some of the things that one needs to do to build into AI so that the human welfare, quote unquote, is front and center? That means algorithmically, you need to be able to infuse into AI things like trust, basically the ability to have transparency in how it works, to be able to take back control. And then most importantly, how do you even infuse into the AI you create human values of empathy? So I thought about that, and that's what I wrote. But one of the things that I also got to was, which kind of gets to the question you asked, what do humans need to do in a world where AI exists? We can't sort of deny it. So one of the things which I think will still be scarce, even in an AI-rich world, would be empathy, curiosity, the ability of humans to be able to explore things which are non-linear. And it's fine for AI to win a game of Go. It's a fantastic achievement, or to be able to get to high-quality speech recognition, which we have now, or image recognition. But it's not the same as being able to do what humans do today when they're at their creative best, or they're at their empathetic best. And education, because what does it mean to give ourselves the skills to be able to, in fact, ride this AI wave versus be afraid of it?
The question here is, a lot of experts in AI don't share the same level of concern that you do about the dangers of AI.
Fools.
What
Famous last words.
What specifically do you believe that they don't?
I'm really quite close to, I'm very close to the cutting edge in AI, and it scares the hell out of me. It's capable of vastly more than almost anyone knows, and the rate of improvement is exponential. You can see this in things like AlphaGo, which went from, in the span of maybe 6 to 9 months, it went from being unable to beat even a reasonably good Go player to then beating the European world champion, who was ranked 600, then beating Lisa Doll 4-5, who had been world champion for many years, then beating the current world champion, then beating everyone while playing simultaneously. Then there was AlphaZero, which crushed AlphaGo 100-0. And AlphaZero just learned by playing itself, and it can play basically any game that you put the rules in for. Whatever rules you give it, it literally read the rules, play the game, and be superhuman for any game. Nobody expected that rate of improvement. If you ask those same experts who think AI is not progressing at the rate that I'm saying, I think you will find that their predictions for things like Go and other AI advancements have their batting average is quite weak. It's not good. We'll see this also with self-driving. I think probably by end of next year, self-driving will encompass essentially all modes of driving and be at least 100 to 200% safer than a person by the end of next year. We're talking like maybe 18 months from now. NHTSA did a study on Tesla's Autopilot version 1, which is relatively primitive, and found that it was a 45% reduction in highway accidents. And that's despite Autopilot 1 being just version 1. Version 2, I think, will be at least 2 or 3 times better. That's the current version that's running right now. So the rate of improvement is really dramatic. We have to figure out some way to ensure that the advent of digital superintelligence is one which is symbiotic with humanity. I think that's the single biggest existential crisis that we face, and the most pressing one.
And how do we do that? I mean, if we take it that it's inevitable at this point, that some version of AI is coming down the line, how do we steer through that?
Well, I'm not normally an advocate of regulation and oversight. I mean, I think one should generally err on the side of minimizing those things. But this is a case where you have a very serious danger to the public. And so therefore, there needs to be a public body that has insight and then oversight to confirm that everyone is developing AI safely. This is extremely important. I think the danger of AI is much greater than the danger of nuclear warheads by a lot. And nobody would suggest that we allow anyone to just build nuclear warheads if they want. That would be insane. And mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes. Far. So why do we have no regulatory oversight? This is insane.
And as you look out on the technology landscape, you've talked about the mavens, what's the next big thing? What's the area that you feel most excited about? It may not necessarily be in your portfolio now, but that you think is going to really take off in the next couple of years.
There's too many to pick. But I would say that I think that AI is just amazing overall. So artificial
We knew you'd
intelligence
say
is
that.
like, but I do think, about 5 years ago, I got asked that question. And I remember saying that I think visual recognition was going to come a long way, language recognition was going to come a long way, and translation would come a long way, and that each of them would probably have a breakthrough in the next 10 years. And when I look today, for example, like the visual recognition work that Flickr is doing is really amazing. Some of the language input that's now available on mobile phones is just remarkably strong, and some of the translation from language to language has gotten really, really good. But I think that being able to use that artificial intelligence to really help people, let the technology get less in the way and achieve more of what they want to do. I think, letting that sort of smart kick in the actual machine learning to help, get so the technology is less visible to people, and what they get to actually accomplish is more tangible. I think that's really where the opportunities are. Mm-hmm. But I also think that, I'm a big believer in Mark Andreessen's theory of, software eats the world. And so I think that when you look at big opportunities, you can sort of look at almost any industry, and if software hasn't been a big disruption to date, you can pretty much predict that it will be.
So on big ideas, artificial intelligence is something that I think has captured the imagination of Washington and probably the rest of the country and world. What is Amazon's approach to artificial intelligence?
Well, first of all, this is artificial intelligence, machine learning, artificial intelligence. It is a renaissance. It is a golden age. We are now solving problems with machine learning and artificial intelligence that were, kind of in the realm of science fiction for the last several decades. And natural language understanding, machine vision problems. It really is an amazing renaissance. And for decades, AI researchers kind of struggled and made very, very slow progress. And over the last 10 years, it looks like one of those S-curves. You're just making a lot of progress very rapidly over the last 10 years.
And we're excited about how we can approach our mission with renewed vigor thanks to the progress we see in AI. AI is enabling this for us to do this in new ways, solving problems for our users around the world. Last year at Google I/O, we announced Google AI. It's a collection of our teams and efforts to bring the benefits of AI to everyone. And we want this to work globally, so we are opening AI centers around the world. AI is going to impact many, many fields. And I want to give you a couple of examples today. Healthcare is one of the most important fields AI is going to transform. Last year, we announced our work on diabetic retinopathy. It's a leading cause of blindness, and we use deep learning to help doctors diagnose it earlier. And we've been running field trials since then at Aravind and Sankara hospitals in India, and the field trials are going really well. We are bringing expert diagnosis to places where trained doctors are scarce. It turned out, using the same retinal scans, there were things which humans quite didn't know to look for, but our AI systems offered more insights. Your same eye scan turns out holds information with which we can predict the 5-year risk of you having an adverse cardiovascular event, heart attack or strokes. So to me, the interesting thing is that more than what doctors could find in these eye scans, the machine learning systems offered newer insights. This could be the basis for a new non-invasive way to detect cardiovascular risk, and we just published the research, and we are going to be working to bring this to field trials with our partners. Another area where AI can help is to actually help doctors predict medical events. Turns out doctors have a lot of difficult decisions to make, and for them, getting advance notice, say 24 to 48 hours before a patient is likely to get very sick, has a tremendous difference in the outcome. And so we have put our machine learning systems to work. We've been working with our partners using de-identified medical records. And it turns out if you go and analyze over 100,000 data points per patient, more than any single doctor could analyze, we can actually quantitatively predict the chance of readmission 24 to 48 hours before, earlier than traditional methods. It gives doctors more time to act. We are publishing our paper on this later today, and we are looking forward to partnering with hospitals and medical institutions. Another area where AI can help is accessibility. We can make day-to-day use cases much easier for people. Let's take a common use case. You come back home in the night and you turn your TV on. It's not that uncommon to see two or more people passionately talking over each other. Imagine if you are hearing impaired and you're relying on closed captioning to understand what's going on. This is how it looks to you.
On a Danny Ainge level, but he's above a Colangelo level. In other words, he understands enough to...
As you can see, it's gibberish. You can't make sense of what's going on. So we have machine learning technology called Looking to Listen. It not only looks for audio cues, but combines it with visual cues to clearly disambiguate the two voices. Let's see how that can work, maybe in YouTube.
Not on a Danny Ainge level, but he's above a Colangelo level. In other words, he understands enough to...
You said it was all right to lose on purpose. You said it's all right to lose on purpose and advertise that to the fans. It's perfectly okay. You said it's okay. We have nothing else to talk about.
We have a lot to talk about.